third party which is affected, anybody who is nearby, he is affected. So this is externality. And externality produced by investment in transport and logistics related impact. The externalities impact the environment. Of course, you put far too many roads and congested signals, etc. It spoils the complete environment. Persons and companies affected or provided service linked to the transport and impacts everywhere elsewhere in the economy. The point is, I have starting this service, but the point is whether consumer or the producer. Other than that, normal common people are affected by that. So it impacts others in the economy or in the society. Impact the environment through vibration, noise, congestion, all these things these transportation system they create. Atmospheric pollution. Pollution is having a direct effect on me, for example. If there is too much of smoke which is coming out from a lot of vehicles, naturally because of pollution, either visibility will come down or it will directly affect my health. So these are externalities. Another externalities are water pollution. It may be polluting the water. It may be visual intrusion. I remember when I was a very young fellow, there was no metro in Delhi. Now you go to Delhi, everywhere you find ugly kind of metro infrastructure which is all obstructing your view. So the beauty of seeing the trees and open sky, it's all gone. So there is this metro system has created great visual intrusion, then danger, then severance of land and communities. वो लैंड इतना जो है जहाँ पे मेट्रो का स्टेशन होता है उसके आसपास इतना ज्यादा कंजेशन हो जाता है, so it affects everybody. So some measures have been done to limit the externalities such as polluter levies. भाई जो pollute करेगा उसको ऊपर लेवी लगना है, चार्जेस लगना है. Limitation on use of vehicles, odd even scheme, landscaping, subsidizing investment in more environmentally friendly measures. For example, Delhi Metro gets a lot of carbon credits for starting the metro because one metro replaces something like more than 1,000 buses, right? So next we come to the pricing. What is pricing? How do you price the transport? I think the topic is absolutely connected with your total course when we are talking about dynamic pricing. So the point is the prices of the transport services, the firms in perfect competition to take the market price as given, which will be equivalent to marginal cost of production without able to influence the price. When you are at an equilibrium stage, so there is a perfect competition, and then price is equal to marginal cost. Marginal cost is how much will it cost to carry, say for example, in passenger traffic, in a train you can take about 1,500 people. Suppose one more person is to be taken. What will be his cost of carrying one more passenger there? We are very clear that marginal cost is very little or exactly rather no cost when you carry one more passengers. So the point is that is the marginal cost, and if you fix the price at the marginal cost, then nobody affects the market equilibrium is not affected. Monopoly or any other firm in monopolistic competition first determines its output and then sets the price level and that sells the output chosen. In practice, firms appear to use a rule of thumb rather than accurate marginal revenue cost plus pricing. Normally हम लोग सब रेलवेज में cost plus pricing करते हैं, charging average cost of producing an item plus some profit margin, the size of which is loosely determined by the market condition. Rule is that if prices are to deviate from marginal cost, it is best to mark up highest for those products which have most inelastic demand. All right. So this was pricing. Now let us see production function. What is production function? When you are producing something, like for example, you are producing transport services. So the function means mathematical relationship between various inputs to output is the production function. Production function expresses technological or engineering relationship between output of a product and its inputs. In other words, relationship between amount of various inputs used in the production process and the level of output is called the production function. Very simply put, in railways we create two products. One is a passenger service product, second is the freight service product. So the production function for the railways will depend upon lot of inputs. For example, how much is the track, how much is the signal, how much is the station cost, how much fuel, how much mechanical part and locomotive, what is the percentage which is used in the production of that transport service. So inputs are known as factors of production. This is economic term. Normally for producing anything, there are two main things. One is the labor and second is the capital. There are two functions. So the point is production function reduces to, it is a function of labor and capital. Labor and capital. Right? So if in general, if we say this is the production, whether it is a steel production or a car production, so there are various ABCD factors of production. This could be land, factory, electricity, raw materials, labor, etc. These are the inputs for the production functions. So again, we come back to the transportation function for Indian Railways. Let us go for Indian Railways. Our output is transport production function is more specifically passenger service output, passenger function, freight service output, freight function, and inputs are rolling stock, track, signaling, manpower, technology, operational, and other stuff. Operating department hello creates passenger and freight services output. The production function is input is defined. So now we come to very quickly we cover what is the cost. A cost function is a relationship between firm's cost and firm's output. The production function is specified the technical maximum quantity of output from various combination of inputs. Like for example, how much my track will cost, how much my locomotive will cost. For that unit service, then we can calculate the cost. And then there are two types of cost, short run cost and long run cost. Short run cost function is normally defined as a time period over which some factors of production are fixed and others are variable. For example, if we want to add a train on a section, so most of the expenditure on the section will remain the same, whether it is freight, its maintenance, signal, or its maintenance, station staff, or its operating expense. So if you put one more train, so the short run cost function is changed. Long term cost function, suppose I want to run instead of my section can carry only up to 50 trains each way or 50 trains on a double line either way. Then suppose I want to make it 100 trains or 250 trains. Then you see we have to change a new section we have to make. New stations I will have to make. New track I will have to put. So then in that case, the cost which will be incurred will be long run cost functions. All right. Then there are two more costs, fixed cost and variable cost. Fixed costs are those in which total costs do not vary with the change in output. Variable costs are those in which increase or decrease with the output. Like for example, I add one more coach in the existing train. So cost of the coach is a variable cost, or maintenance of each coach is a variable cost. But and there is a these costs are there for the short run. Fixed costs are those which do not vary, like running of an extra train on the section, buying a new rake. The infrastructure, fixed infrastructure cost will not change. Then what is sunk cost is the cost incurred in the past, which are irretrievable and thus not relevant to the current decisions. Large capital cost incurred but is not contributing to the product. Suppose you have purchased a locomotive and nothing is coming. So the point is it will not change. It will not change. Right. Then average total cost is ATC. Total cost, जो total cost लगेगी आपको बनाने में रेल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फॉर एग्जांपल, और टोटल आउटपुट आप उससे कितना नेट टन किलोमीटर और पैसेंजर किलोमीटर NTKM and PKM you are producing, you divide by that, you will know the average cost. Average cost is equal to average fixed cost and average variable cost. Then cost can be divided into average fixed cost. कितना fixed infrastructure पे cost लग गया, कितना variable. Fuel, for example, is variable. To run less trains, the fuel is consumed less. The marginal cost is defined as extra or additional cost of producing one more unit of output. I think I will explain that. Marginal cost is change in the total cost divided by change in quantity. Marginal cost gives host of opportunities for fixing band of prices. Now there is one term which is economic term which is very frequently used, which is very relevant for our railways. One is economies of scale. Economies of scale means in any passenger train you carry 1500 passengers. So there is an economy of scale. You see, suppose you have to carry only 20 passengers. Will you run a full train? No, you will not, because economically that is not justified. Similarly, if you have to carry 5 freight wagons and you attach a locomotive and run it, there will be no economy of scale. So some people have very wisely decided we will run only rake, complete rake of trains. There are huge economies of scale in moving a rake. Rake is a 2000 tons moves from point A to point B, and there is a huge economies of scale. This is the meaning of the economies of scale, because then you get a lower per unit cost. 1500 पैसेंजर चले गए या 2000 टन जो है एक बार में ट्रेन में चला गया, सो पर यूनिट कॉस्ट रेट जो है वो रिड्यूस हो गया. Improved infrastructure due to industry, right? Then another term is economies of scale, scope. The basic argument is cost efficiency in production process brought about by variety rather than volume. अभी आप इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल में यू आर सेइंग कि 1500 पैसेंजर लेके जाए, सपोज उसमें आप थोड़ा सा चेंज कर लीजिए, आपने उसी के अंदर पार्सल ट्रेन के SLR एक्स्ट्रा लगा दिए उस ट्रेन में. So you have changed the economies of scale is there, but you have changed the total scope of the work. It is not passengers alone, half passengers and half persons. So the point is the cost efficiency is brought by variety. It is a variety of the products or services which you have put rather than volume. So this is known as economies of scope, right? It makes eminent sense to run a lot of parcel traffic by the railways, क्योंकि आपकी cost उसमें marginal cost लगेगी and you can generate a lot of profit. Right. Now we come to important topic. This is appraisal of transport projects. Now let us compute the how do you appraise metro system, say in Delhi or in Chennai or in Havana, you want to put up a metro system. Now, how will you calculate its appraise this project? So it is normally all projects are invested, evaluated by return on investment. Suppose उसमें 500 करोड़ लग गया खर्चा, तो what is the return on 500? Time value of is computed. Now in the projects like metro, lot of money is spent, but economic values, economic revenue you do not get only by computing the what passenger pays. Then in that case you calculate what is known as cost benefit analysis, and then the point is if you put up a metro system, then by metro system the cities are greatly benefited because you have to travel from A point to B point. It takes very less time. So everybody is benefited. So the value of time is important. For example, I will just take one example. We used to go for a meeting in Bombay VT in Churchgate with the officers there. So from there we had to come back. From Santa Cruz I had to take a flight. So we will never go by a taxi because a taxi is used to take 3 hours from Bombay VT to Santa Cruz. Yeah. What we used to do is from rest house, I used to send the my luggage through the car at the Santa Cruz metro station. And from Bombay VT or Churchgate CCG used to travel by the metro train, go with the driver or travel by the metro train. So it will take only about 30 minutes to reach Santa Cruz. There you change. So the total time which you spend is hardly 40 minutes going to the airport. Otherwise it was taking 3 hours. So this is the value of time. By metro systems in the city, you reduce the time, the time of travel to a great extent, and that value of money actually benefits the entire society. Anybody who takes that metro system is benefited. If he is a very high paying individual, because even if high paying individual has to take his car, he may take 2 hours or 3 hours. If he goes by a Delhi metro, it takes 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So there is a lot of benefits he gets in terms of value of time. He must be earning in 3 hours huge amount of money. And if he wastes that time in traveling, then it is a lost, it's not a very profitable thing. So evaluation of rail infrastructure revenue is passenger and freight revenue, and the cost is the total cost of the project. Revenue of passenger and freight and social cost benefits are totally taken into account. Year-wise revenue cost is calculated by DCF techniques, all of us know, discounted cash flow. And for social cost benefit analysis, for all the road projects, for any project, we have to compute metro systems or road. We have to compute what is known as cost benefit analysis. Cost benefit analysis is very, very important terms in transport economics. Appraisal of an investment project which includes the social and financial cost. There is something called social cost to the society. Congestion is a cost. Health, pollution is a cost, social cost. So if you compute by putting this system or making this road, lot of social benefits accrue to the society, then you say social benefits and financial benefits. It is the total benefit which society is getting as against the total cost. So in this term, total benefit terms, is the society gaining or not? A system like metro cannot be justified only on basis of fare. The project is never viable. It is justified on social consideration. The city benefits a great in economic terms. So in economics, we call it the consumer surplus is equal to producer surplus plus social surplus. CS is the consumer surplus. भाई मैंने ट्रेवल किया मुझे क्या बेनिफिट मिला ये मेरा surplus. And producer surplus, suppose somebody is putting up the metro train who is running, how much is the cost to that guy? But over and above, there is something called social surplus. This is something which is society has done. So consumer surplus is equal to producer surplus plus social surplus. This is the social cost benefit analysis is a very important concept in the transport. Suppose you are working in Delhi Metro, then you have learned the transport economics as a subject. There your CMD will say, okay, go and compute for this section which I am going to, start, compute the benefit. Then if you only say कि भाई इसको चलाने में इतना पैसा लगेगा, इसमें टिकट से इतना सेल आएगा, the project will never be justified. You have to compute the consumer social benefits. Right? I remember if you see a lot of time, there is a newspaper item in which say कि Delhi Metro has earned so much carbon credit for their total operation for 1 year. What is the carbon credit? It is the credit in terms of benefit which has been given by the metro to the society by a reduction of pollution. Right, sir? So that is why when you do the appraisal of transport projects, by whether it is road or the metro system or any other system, then for appraising that in World Bank, in ADB, everywhere, it is the total appraisal of that project is done in terms of producer surplus, consumer surplus, and social surplus. All right. Now we come to the very important question. Is railway making profit? Yes and no. Let us be clear. Some may be saying yes, we make profit. Some may be saying no, we don't make profit. So the question is, let us discuss this issue. We create PKMs, passenger kilometers, when we carry any passengers for, say, if a passengers are carried for 100 kilometers, so one passenger traveling for 100 kilometers, the PKM is 100. All right. And similarly, net 10 kilometer comes for the freight. Yes, we make money in carrying freight traffic. We also make money in mail and express trains, in sleeper class, AC2, AC3, but we are heavily losing in the branch line passenger trains and all the branch lines. So should we stop all the branch line trains? The moment we say, no, as an Indian Railways, I will stop all the branch line trains, the government will say, I mean to say, the politicians have to see the social surplus you are making to the society. Your minister will say, no, you can't stop the branch line train. This gives such a social benefits to so many poor people who are living below poverty line. So these trains stop at all stations. Thus, very useful to provide. We have 7,000 stations. Between the small stations, if we run a passenger train, lot of benefits, social benefits go to that community. So the social point of view, these trains are very useful. We create huge social surplus. Economic surplus nahi hai usme, but social surplus. Consumer surplus plus the poor people are greatly benefited. So the point is producer surplus plus social surplus in this equation. Social surplus is very, very. But passenger surplus, that is Indian Railway surplus, may be low for overall. It creates great value for the people. So if we take the railway system as a whole, we may be losing on some services where we, provide a lot of services to the poor people. So the point is, we create a lot of social surplus. So we should be actually computing. We should not, traditional balance sheet method will not work. We have to compute producer surplus plus consumer surplus. Welfare economic tells us this Indian Railways, even though financially they may lose money, but it not be a, may not be a bad thing because ultimately you have given large number of social benefits to the people. You give a lot of other benefits to the poor people. For example, you give us houses which are being made. Now you have Jal Mission where the water supply is being taken to house. Does these things make money? No, they don't. But from social point of view, these things are very important. Or one cylinder to very poor house or toilet for that matter. It's an important social thing. So, dear sir, any government which is worthwhile has to give lot of social surplus to the people. Lot of people. One third of the India is below poverty line. What do you do for them? So Indian Railways are not owned by some board or minister. No, Indian Railways are owned by the people of India. People of India is always asking you, what are you giving me in return? I have invested so much money in you, and I, for so many years you are existing. Lot of land you have taken for making the railway system. So poor fellows may say कि आप हमको क्या दे रहे हैं? So the question is, the answer is, we run passenger trains for you and we create social surplus for you. All right. So it may not be the making of the profit, yes and no, may not be really very relevant. Right. Another thing which is very important is the subsidy. A lot of people understand what is the subsidy. Government grants to suppliers of goods and services. गवर्नमेंट की तरफ से कितनी सब्सिडी मिल गई इंडियन रेलवेज को सब्सिडी मिलती है आंसर इज यस एंड नो अगेन द सब्सिडी मे बी इंटेंडेड टू द keep the prices down or to raise the real income of buyers or to maintain income of producers. For example, farmers, you are giving a lot of benefits to the farmers. That subsidy is given, whether it is power subsidy or urea subsidy, so many subsidies you give. So because you have to maintain that service and that somehow you have to see that poor man also survives. So the point is in the railway system, for example, British Rail for all the suburban kind of traffic, they give a lot of subsidies. Indian Railway gives a lot of subsidies, right? Essential characteristic of subsidy as distinct from transfer payment is that object of keeping prices below the factor of cost of production. फर्टिलाइजर में इतनी सब्सिडी इसलिए देते हैं क्योंकि अदरवाइज farmers cannot afford that price which is the economic price for production of fertilizer. So it is below the factor production cost and subsidy is given, and that is you see your country, it is huge surplus of food grains you create. Nobody is dying out of anger because non-availability of food grain. It's a good service which is created. So naturally, there is some subsidy is required to be given to the farmers. Subsidies by distorting the market price and opportunity cost may lead to misallocation of resources and may be justified in certain cases. I remember Chandrababu Naidu and Andhra, he was the chief minister for entire Andhra and Telangana put together. So he used to say that if you are asking the electricity at a subsidized rate or no rate, then you cannot get 24 hours of power supply. You get for 2 hours. So the question is, anybody who is Some people may be misusing. वो कभी बत्ती बंद ही नहीं करते. For example, farmers in Punjab, for them the electricity is free. For the rural, electricity is free. So their pumps will always be working. So the issue is it is misallocation. It is not for what purpose it has been created. All right. So transport economics, Indian Railway is not purely pursuing only profitability, but is also a social organization. Operating ratio is touching 100, whereas it should be 90. But in light of the discussion above, this may not be bad idea. There is a skewed strategy between passenger and freight. We give lot of subsidy to the passenger traffic. Don't give any subsidy to freight traffic. We are overpricing freight rates and subsidizing passenger traffic. With the result, we lose freight market share. In order to gain the market share, there is a case of reducing freight. We have a valuable fuel traffic. Because of very high classification, which is more than 200, it has led to big focus by POL sector to invest in pipeline. हमारी हाई प्राइसिंग की वजह से उन्होंने अपने अप्रोजल प्रोजेक्ट में लिख दिया कि द पाइपलाइन इज जस्टिफाइड बिकॉज दे विल बी सेविंग ऑन द ट्रांसपोर्टेशन. Justified makes economic sense for the economy as a whole. So the point is we lost this fuel traffic. Huge. Because we should have reduced the. So the question is, should we reduce the subsidy to the passengers or shall we reduce the freight charges? It's an important issue we discussed. So there is a huge subsidy provided to the passenger traffic by keeping the fare low. It is inefficient use of subsidy rather than fare. Give direct benefit to lower income. Why keep the total fare less? Lot of people who are traveling by safer class also can easily afford that. It's not the only poor people. So if you have to give subsidy, वो 500 रुपए उसको सब्सिडी दे दीजिए सीधी. Anybody who is below poverty line, you give him, I will give you 500 rupees as a subsidy for traveling. But don't keep the total fare down. You get? There is something known as Kisan Samman Nidhi. I think 2,000 rupees per farmer. If he is less than 5 acre, he gets in his accounts direct benefit transfer to his account. And in a year it comes to 6,000 rupees. Similarly, any poor people, if you want to give them the subsidy, you give the money transfer like this. Don't keep the total fare less. Because by keeping the total fare less, lot of people who can afford and who should have paid for that service are also not paying. With the result, you are losing. So this is another way of looking at it. Of course, these are political issues. I do not know whether it should be, it will be there or not. So no dynamic pricing either in fare or freight. Now I think you are going to do a complete course on dynamic pricing. So ask your fellows who are teaching you dynamic pricing whether on the freight or on the passenger side we actually do the dynamic pricing or we don't do. So the question is, actually speaking, we don't do. We should be doing dynamic pricing for all our products and services. So the point is how to do it, whether it should be done or not. The question is you have administered pricing. एक बार आपका बजट साल का आ जाता है, उसमें जो फेयर दिखा दिया जाता है, वही फेयर पूरे साल चलता है और that fare is applicable to everybody in the country. There is no differentiation between point to point or particular set, and it is no relevance or not pegged to any market forces. You cannot do something like that. Okay, on this particular service, I have a huge market, misallocation. The whole traffic is moving to the road or some other mode. So here I will give the dynamic pricing I have reduced for this section. But unfortunately, nobody has authority to do that in the railway. So thoda hai station to station rates, etc. It is too complicated to be implemented, and everybody is scared of the vigilance and other problems. So when we were very young, we used to do the station to station rates. We were able to fix. Nowadays, hardly anybody. Another thing is we provide 150 concessions. The question arises, should we give the concessions or not? I remember when I was a student, Delhi के अंदर DTC बस में students were given travel pass of 12 rupees. और 12 rupees का पास बड़ा important होता था. उसको हम एक बार बनवा लेते थे, यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफिस से बन जाता था, and we used to travel as much as. But we found that was very useful for us. Right, sir? So some usefulness is there for concessions. Ultimately, people who are cancer patients, old people, why not? Concession is a good thing for them. It's a great social benefit for them. So the question is, concession is a subsidy which I think railway should continue. But for example, if I am traveling, I'm a senior citizen, I'm more than 69 years of age, should I be given concession? I would say no, because I can easily afford it. I have no problem. Financially, I'm okay. So for me, it doesn't make sense. So the point is, for all senior citizens, it may not be correct, but the question is, how will you administer that concession? So the question is, subsidy is an important aspect. Now, I think what I will do is very quickly I will cover the balance topic. Then we have basically for doing rating, we have two principles: cost of service and value of service. So
Sir.
the point is, yes, please.
या कह रहे सर वी हैव टाइम तो चूंकि नेक्स्ट सेशन सर है अश्विनी सर का सीवी और ट्रैफिक का तो थोड़ा लेट ज्वाइन करेंगे तो वी हैव सफिशिएंट टाइम वी हैव
फिर मैं इसको
participants also at this time we have 15 officers who have joined till now
okay then it
आप
makes sense.
बढ़ा सकते हैं सर जो भी 20 मिनट 25 मिनट हो
क्योंकि we have entered the interesting phase of discussion.
yes sir yes so we have sufficient time.
It is important. All right. So we do two kinds of ratings in railways: cost of service and value of service. All right. Cost of service is whatever we carry, whatever rate we carry a passenger or freight service. So the point is, on that cost we add slightly markup, and then that is the price which we fix. But value of service, you see, like fuel, I told you, we find that a lot of people in fuel, steel, cement, here, based on value of service, we are charging very heavy. So the question is, we should use the unit cost data. Of course, it is not a course on unit cost data. There's a separate cost, costing, to find the cost of each train and its profitability. Where the train is at loss, it should be determined, and train is meeting, and then we should ask ourselves a question: is it any way meeting the social objective? If it is meeting the social objectivity, that means it is also a purpose of the Indian Railways. So the question is, social benefit also has to be computed. Of course, the correct way of costing is activity-based costing, is known as ABC. So I think we are still very far from that. We still have average data of unit cost, in which some department and some organization, entire cost of the railway board is also part of that costing, or entire headquarters is very heavy. So the point is, if you will go for activity based costing, तो उसमें बहुत सारी activities निकल जाएंगी, आपकी cost कम हो जाएगी. All right, it is interesting to note 80% of cost is incurred when taking a path of a train, and only 20% is incurred on the train itself. It gives us a clue that we should carry more passengers per train. बड़ा सिंपल सा है हमारा जो path है it is the most costly asset which we are utilizing for running a train. So why not you double decker train चला दो. Dense traffic है वहाँ पे double decker चला दो. बिल्कुल it is justified and per unit cost will come half. In the double stack container train. Now DFC will put all the container trains will be double stack. The moment you do that, per unit cost of carrying a container will be reduced to half. Then your large number of share from road to rail may shift to you. That is the benefit. So market share of railways is 20% on the passenger side and 30% in freight side. It's such a mammoth infrastructure. Market share is pittance. There should be a strategy for increasing market share. Why not? Why we lose 20%? So the question is, what is our strategy to do that? That is the subject of economics. Basically, it is the subject of marketing. But the point is, marketing and transport economics, they are merged at one point of time. So that is for Indian Railways. So let us share very quickly 2-3 other modes also. All right. One is truck and road costing. This is the road or truck. They are our, our biggest competitors. So can we study something about what do they do in trucking and road and costing? And some concept we can apply to railways. So let us look at the unit cost for road. Unit cost of quantity in which cost may be expressed is cost per kilometer. They publish everything per kilometer or cost per ton. These are the two indices which road sector makes. Of course, railways also per kilometer we do. In the costing data we have unit cost data, we can compute cost per kilometer or cost per ton kilometer also we can compute. For road sector, what is the cost center? See, for railways also we have to very seriously look at what is our cost sector. Center क्या है? कहाँ पे खर्चा हो रहा है? So in trucking system, it's very simple. Equipment, that is truck or fleet, driver and depot. Only 3 costs. Railway is very complicated. So many departments you have made. And you are totally confused which department consumes more or less. There is no control over any other department, to really go for asking them. I have not seen a general manager asking the PHODs कि भाई आपकी जो है सिग्नलिंग की कॉस्ट ज़्यादा है, ट्रैक मेंटेनेंस की कॉस्ट ज़्यादा है, इसको कम कीजिए so that overall total cost for the Indian Railways comes down, or for that matter, that particular railway. Say for example, general manager Northern Railway is not asking his PHOD, भाई आपका cost कम होना चाहिए. No, but here it's very simple. Truck cost, driver cost, and depot cost. That's it. So again, it also has direct cost and indirect cost. Directly attributable cost center is fuel, road vehicle license, vehicle insurance, basically 3 or 4. And indirect cost is office staff wages. उनका भी हेडक्वार्टर होता है, उसकी कॉस्ट भी उसमें लगाते हैं. टेलीफोन चार्जेस, एडवर्टाइजिंग, right? So what are the fixed cost? Cost of the vehicle itself is a fixed cost. खरीद लिया आपने ट्रक तो खड़ा हुआ है, चाहे आप चलाएं या ना चलाएं. Depreciation, all right, it is also incurred on that. Excise duty, vehicle insurance, all these are fixed costs for the road also. Similarly, we said we had, like, if you purchase a locomotive, for you, if you don't run a train, it is a sunk cost. And variable cost varies with respect to distance. fuel, oil, maintenance. Same thing for the railways. Right? Fixed costs, variable costs are almost you can compute. But the question is, you can reduce lot of fixed costs which are not very relevant for the operation of that thing. So transport costs are became in case of road three costs. One is standing cost or fixed cost. Second is running or variable cost. Third is overhead costs. Right? There are three parts only for road costs, trucking costs. Standing cost, fixed cost, running cost, or overhead costs. In case of, say, for example, UK trucking industry, percentages of three are fixed costs, consist of excise duty, insurance, and depreciation. It comes to about 11.7%. Fixed cost is 11.7%. Driver is 29.3%. Driver is the most valuable thing for a trucking industry, most costly thing. And running cost, another huge money spending thing is fuel, 25.3%, and 2.9% maintenance. No, sorry, tires is 2.9%, and 10% is the maintenance. If you compute the maintenance cost of the railway assets, it is much more than 10%. Much more than 10%. And in overheads, on the 7.3% on transport, business is 7.3%. Railways, this overhead is very, very much more than anything else. So, अगर आपको ट्रक से compete करना है, so the question is first you do the activity-wise costing. Wherever you can reduce. The second thing is you compute the marginal costing, and you fixed your rate just more than marginal cost so that you get slight profit. Where there is a competition with road, where there is no competition, you continue with the way you are continuing. Right? Similar kind of low overhead. These three breakup is for India also. Standing cost, running cost, and overhead cost. All right. Now, few terminologies. In India, the truck rates are quoted for LCL, less than truck, and FTL, full truckload. Full truckload per unit ton kilometer is cheaper. अगर less than एक आपने पैकेज ले लिया उसका रेट ज्यादा होता है. The rated for ODC are rates for ODC are quoted separately as per OD. And of course, railway also have a ODC costs which are defined. This is also very complicated way computed for running any train, any cargo. It is normally ODCs are moved in a well type of manner. Some things cannot be moved by rail. It is taken by road. Like for example, Delhi Metro. For example, very simple example. Baramulla to on the Srinagar Valley side, we run for 100 kilometers. We run the passenger. All the coaches, how they were taken there, they were all ODCs. They were taken by the trucks. All right, they have a very sophisticated system of carrying any ODC. Right. Trucking in India is more like a conglomeration of large number of small scale operators rather than organized industry. As a matter of fact, 75% of the traffic is individual truck owners are. एक ट्रक है, दो ट्रक है, वो मालिक भी है, उसको ओन भी करता है उस ट्रक को. He operates it also. He fixes the rate himself. Everything he has the flexibility. Only 25% is having organized into trucking companies. There are, I think, 5, 6, at the most 10 more companies who have, their trucks. Like, for example, Safe Express, Gati, these people have their own trucks. All right. Freight structure in goods road traffic is determined at different levels. The transport contractors or contractor or the booking agent quote and settle the rates with consignor. सीधा संबंध है. These contractors settle the rates with the consignors. These rates are negotiated and are valid for a normally जो इसका रेट होता है जो एक साल के लिए तो valid होता है. It's valid with uniform one GST and passage of tolls. Passage through tolls has become very fast. There is a sea change in the freight traffic which moves by road in India. अब वो नाके के ऊपर इतनी सारे ट्रक खड़े होते थे कि सब खत्म हो गए. Because once you pay the GST, then you have the way bill. Way bill you just carry from one state to another state to third state. The cargo can move. There is very little intervention of the RTO. Somewhere they do stop because RTO fellows want to make money. वो लोग रोक लेते हैं. But otherwise there is no problem. It has become so fast that I remember earlier in UK or USA, per truck used to travel for about 800 kilometers, 800 miles. In India, it was less than 300 miles, less than 300 kilometers. Now with this change, and now there is a fast track tag also available. The trucks you put up a fast tag and you can just go through various stores straight away. With the result, it has almost doubled their throughput and the road Indian conditions has doubled. The road transport has become very, very efficient. But the point is, has railway become equally efficient? Answer is in some cases yes, in some cases no. So another thing is important thing in road is road pricing. रोड का खर्चा किसको पड़ना चाहिए? Who should bear the cost of a road? Question and answer. We are very clear as far as track is concerned. Cost of the track is borne by Indian Railways. So the cost of the track is always added to us, but it doesn't happen in the road. It is a public good and no prices for it. To generate the investment, the question is only when you want to lay down a road, then how you will be done the cost benefit analysis. A toll is charged on the highway. Now a FASTag is compulsory under new Motor Vehicle Act. Road is a public good. Hence road pricing is described as determined by pollution, congestion, octroi, entrance cost. So the point is, it is otherwise free, but if you are polluting somewhere or creating some congestion, or you have to pay octroi or entry tax. So pricing is a function of congestion cost, pollution cost, octroi, entrance tax, toll tax, etc. So this kind of road pricing economics is prevalent in many countries like UK, Singapore, etc. To some extent, toll tax we have introduced, but we don't charge anything for congestion. Some the entry of a truck into Delhi, they had put I think 500 rupees sometime. I do not know what is the status of that. But the point is, in transport economics, we always used to road pricing, we used to compute as a mathematical equation depending upon congestion, pollution, octroi, these parameters. And there is a very good, case studies available on leads road pricing. So city center, the road pricing is levied depending on the zone. This happens in London Met. If you are London, central business district, if you are taking a car on a fast tag or on the tag which is put on your car, heavy charges for the duration it is on the central business district, you are very heavily charged. And on the outer side, you are charged less. So this is how the road pricing is done in various countries. I think we are just evolving, not really something. Again, we come to second. What do you do in shipping and containers? Oh, shipping is a very important. Buying a ship is very expensive, and so that it is a huge barrier to entry. We have learned the term barrier to entry. How many people can buy a ship? Many people can buy a ship. So entry into the shipping market is, there are a lot of barriers into entry. There are only few companies who run the shipping services. Also, the purchasing cost of the ship is a sunk cost. आपने एक बार खरीद लिया तो फिर तो बर्बाद हो गया. इसके अलावा the port charges include berthing charge, pilotage charge, stevedoring charges, transit shed charges. Stevedoring is when the stevedores are the fellow who unload from the ship and load into a truck or a railway container on a flat which moves on the railway track. However, some products, the most economic means of carriage remains the conventional rail. Still, the ship conventional sea is the most economical, and it applies to bulk goods that are going long distances. Speed is very slow, is irrelevant, and it is the cheapness which matters. Right? There are containers are two types. One is less than container load, like less than truck load था, यहाँ पर less than container load है. So you can, by container you can send a small cargo which is less than the container. Or full container load, full container you have to load at the CFS container freight station or ICD, depending on the situation. And haulage cost consists of trucking. Now we are seeing that cargo, which is internationally, exported or imported. First is trucking from factory to the port, stuffing and de-stuffing cost, either of the container or whatever thing by which you are carrying it, carriage by ship, and haulage from port to the factory, and prices are fixed by the container or the shipping companies. Incidentally, I hope you are aware that all the containers are basically owned by the shipping companies. Advantage of containers are, there are a lot of advantages of moving the cargo by containers, and this is reduction in damage, reduction in packing cost. It provides door-to-door service. We were very young people. The one marketing department under us, in which first, starting point for the department was the containers provided. We were moving all the containers. I myself was in charge of the operations of Northern Railway. So I handed over that ICD at Tughlakabad to Container Corporation of India. So there it was 1967 this marketing department was created in the railways. They used to say कि भाई कंटेनर का एडवांटेज है डोर टू डोर सर्विस होती है, रिडक्शन इन हैंडलिंग चार्जेस एट द पोर्ट थ्रू ट्रांजिट. These are the benefits of the container. All right, let's go a little bit. Air freight. Small introduction to air freight. Air freight compared very well with other modes over longer international movements. This is because very rapid air-to-air transit times over long distances. You have to import a cargo from US, a small PC or laptop. It will always come by air freight. Now even take your Covaxin, sorry, not Covaxin, Covishield. your vaccination, dose, it all moves by air, comes very fast, right? And the point is, the supply chain systems by the air, they take the advantage of very fast transit by air and very less damage by air. So the point is, it is still a preferable mode, and the largest air freight market is US. As a matter of fact, out of total global market, 25% of the air freight is concentrated in US alone. The structure of USA, they have either air or by cars. There are only two modes for carrying things. Of course, lot of you know, trucks also ply in US. Beautiful trucks by trucking companies. There are, I think, 10, 15 trucking companies. They run these. So the air freight is because it is a very rapid air-to-air transit times. Lead time economy requires less inventory. Suppose you can lead time, your time transit time, you can convert that transit time into very less inventory. आपके पास 24 घंटे की भी इन्वेंट्री है तो आप एयर से जो है DIU can take that product and still you can maintain the inventory at 24 hours. Right? Commodities with high value to weight like perishables, fashion goods, emergency supply, right? Speed gain is vital. So their air freight is preferred. Air freight is very expensive form of transport. It is the greatest disadvantage, but because of efficiency is very high, it offsets this high price to a great extent. But when coming to talking about transport economics, of course, airport freight is expensive. But when you are actually computing the total cost, so the question is cost of inventory. If you take air freight, may not be that unviable, right? So with that, my lectures come to end. I have 11:29, I think. Yes. Right. So, sir, lot of questions because this topic requires lot of, I think, journey. In the sense, it covers the what strategy railway should be having, and number two, should we continue to run the passenger trains on branch lines or not? Should we continue to give subsidies to the concessions to the senior citizens and things like that? So, my questions, please.
Yes, officers. If you have any query regarding the transport economics in the costing of railways, services, as well as the pricing, so you can just share your experience as well as you can just ask any query if you have. Are we audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sir, I think
Renash Yadav. Yes, please.
Sir, this is Mahesh Yadav. That my name is somehow wrong. I am presently SCM in Northern Railway.
Okay, Northern Railway SCM. Oh, I
Yes.
was Deputy CCM on Northern Railway. All right.
So it's a very nice presentation. I just want to have one, as you have mentioned, that we don't focus on the cost uh, which we are incurring. Rather, we are focusing on the on our pricing.
Yes.
So, how to go with that? Because traffic becomes the main entity which is having the profit, or we are working for profit, while all other departments are indulged in the so-called expenses. So that is very necessary, because if we want to have that equilibrium, then we need to have a cost saving. how to go with it, because day to day we are struggling for doing the marketing, doing the road rate analysis.
Yes, I think you have asked a very relevant question. First thing is we should not view other departments as the cost centers because they provide a useful input to the production of the various services. So they have a role to play, an important role to play. Because railways is technically very strong because of the strength of the technical department. Let us be clear about it. All right. What question you asked, how do we do the costing? To my mind, this cannot be settled at your level, not even your general manager can settle this issue. This issue is required to be dealt with at the board's level. Railway board level, they should actually, they have to only give an order that please do the costing for all trains and all the unit cost data is available, infrastructure is available with all zonal railways. They will do the costing. And second thing, the general manager should ask what is the profitability for various services or profitability class wise, sleeper class, unreserved class, what is the profitability? Two things, if that is done, at least it will throw the data what is costly for you to run the service, what is not costly. Then comes the second question. Once the costing has been settled, then board should ask the general managers, oh, your CRI will write only when you reduce the cost for various inputs. If you reduce the cost, it will be fine. So the question is, that is second, how to put up a systems and processes where costing is, number one, train-wise costing is done. Number two, there is a conscious effort for reducing the cost. Third question. The point is, pricing is concerned, all pricing is done by this railway board again. They fix up the pricing for all the trains, all the classes, for all the times, for all the zonal railways. Why so? At least the same general manager should then ask the railway board that here it is a situation, here I can get more traffic for this stream of traffic, but you charge here not the total fixed cost plus something, but you charge only marginal cost for running these services. And marginal cost can, as I have told you, can again be computed. So the point is, it will give you a band of playing with the prices. But the issue is, as even your general manager, your CCM, they have very little power for doing these kinds of things. So if we do a course like a course on transport economics, or we do a course on dynamic pricing, first of all, let us understand who can do the dynamic pricing in railway. Damn all,
Yes.
the zonal railway can do it. Okay.
Yes.
But the point is again coming back to the whole thing. Once we do the profitability of each of every train, then we have to compute the social component that train is providing. If a train is providing a social surplus for the poor people, then it has to be evaluated not in terms of profitability, financial profitability, but total profitability, which includes the financial plus, right?
Sir, in that segregate that because this social responsibility is sort of a CSR. So we should segregate first. We delimit that where are we going to have a profit center and where are we going to have that social responsibility. And after getting that profit center, some profit out of that profit center, then we should look into the same. So we have to do this because the first day since I came into this service, and I think all other junior who are attending this and even respective seniors, they are having a question: are we a commercial entity or are we a social organization?
I think I touched on that topic. There was one full slide on it. Are we a commercial organization or a social organization? But the question is, what's your name?
Mahesh.
Mahesh Yadav. देखिए, the question is very simple. The entire infrastructure of the Indian Railways is provided by Government of India. Okay, the capital which you have, which you call it capital HR, has all been given by Government of India at the rate of for which you capital HR, it is only at 7%. That infrastructure they have spent on you. So when I was EDPM in Railway Board, I had written to Ministry of Social Welfare. I said, this kind of concessions which we give, you are the Ministry of Social Welfare. You give this subsidy. Why should railways give that subsidy? Then there was such a nasty letter from their side and written to the railway minister that who is this guy, young guy, he's asking for subsidy should be paid by railways. We don't consider as a separate organization. It is part of the government. It is part of the total social program of the government. So the subsidies. The point is what can be done is we should segregate all the trains and all the classes. Here are the classes which make profit on their own. Here are the classes which we have to run compulsorily for providing the social benefit. And its computation should be segregated. And total computation करने के बाद में ये निकल आएगा कि इतना सब्सिडी देते हैं. अभी हौच पौच है, सब्सिडी की फिगर्स भी ठीक नहीं होती है. और दूसरा it creates a confusion in the organization. Are we making profit or not? Are we commercial or are we social? What are we? So the question is, once you segregate, you will be able to know, okay, here is the subsidy. We can't call it CSR because CSR is for a company, the particular 2% of your budget is required to be spent on social. When a role of an organization is predominantly commercial and social both, so it cannot be social responsibility. It is social responsibilities have to be done by the railways as well. But how much will you do and will you ask a subsidy for it? It's a different issue. This is to be settled between Government of India and Ministry of Finance. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Sir, at present our employment is so much, and we are spending some 57% of our earning for pension and salaries. Why can't we do what you compared with shipping and road? They are private people. They are not having a pension or fixed payment, this thing, hire and fire system. And why can't we think about our waste management and HR management in a lean management system? Why we are thinking of increasing the price or this thing regarding subsidy, other thing? Why you're not thinking about the waste management in our system at present? Whatever in our hand, we can save it. Rather than before thinking other things, we can save the things. We can make this some save.
Okay. You are Ravi?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You are asking a very, very pertinent question. Let me be very clear about one thing. First of all, whatever waste is there, I said that we should compute the cost of each and every train, and it should be the responsibility of the general manager to reduce the costs, simply. And once he is tightened for reducing the cost, he will come back, throw back to the railway board that, look here, these are the subsidies I am providing. So please compute them separately. And then naturally board will ask them, what about your wastage? Why you are not reducing the wastage on various things? Wastage could be in many things. There is a full manual is required to be made. What kind of wastage and what are the costs which can be reduced by wastage? Now you said about salary. The question is, if you see the total production function, can you reduce the number of ASMs? Can you reduce the drivers on the train? So the question you will find a lot of people whom you employ, they are actually doing useful operational services in the railways. Their staff cannot be cut down, whatever may be the salary. Salary is a different thing altogether. But where this is huge number of people sitting in I would not name a particular department. In many departments, they are just sitting there, huge numbers of them, and they are office people. So why not? This can be completely computerized, and then their cost be reduced. To my mind, it can all be done. Why should personal department of a particular railway should have, I think, 300, 400 clerks? They are not required. So the point is, you have to see who is the person who is providing the useful operational service. Don't reduce on the operational side, because then how will you run the system? You can't run without them. So the question is, but still there is a scope. Lot of things can be computerized. Office thing can all be 100% computerized. Why have a lot of clerks? Not required. So why you are doing everything? Why don't you employ a team of, say, chartered accountants or finance professionals who will, sign an agreement with you, and you say that these services you will provide. I remember there was a Bank of Punjab. There was one bank. I went to, the MD was my friend. I went to see their operations. What do you do? So he said that we keep only 1% of the staff. 99% staff, including making the balance sheet of the bank and earning from the customers, etc. This is all we have outsourced. मैंने कहा वो घपला कर दे तो क्या करोगे? कहने लगा हम उसको जो है हमारे इसमें agreement में these are the penalties specified with him on him. We impose on him. But they had outsourced 99% of their operation to the basically outsource system. So a lot of things can be outsourced also. Lot of reduction can be done there. But the question is, it is a very hard look at the, you have to see in the total organization. Unfortunately, आज जो हम discussion कर रहे हैं, उसमें जो है ना, these are important organizational issues. And as a young officer, you have all the rights to ask questions, but it is required to be done at a different level. Right? I personally agree with you. But we have about 14 lakh employees, out of which how many are operational employees? At least we segregate them. And then out of operational also, how much work can be done with the computer? We do that also. Immediately don't reduce their number, because otherwise you will create unemployment problem in the economy, which is also not desirable for a country as a whole. But the point is, long-term strategy should be made. How to reduce, how to change the technology. At least office में तो किया जा सकता. I was surprised. I was deputy COM goods in Northern Railway. So my COM said कि भाई ये fuel वाले बहुत लोग बैठते हैं, ये सब लोगों का देख लो कितने लोग हैं. 2-3 लोग होंगे. There are, you reduce the staff. So I just did an analysis on the fuel. There were 51 clerks in COM's office. And I told CM कि we have sir 51 people. CM उछल के खड़े हो गए SP जैन साहब. कहने लगे 51 people, what do they do? सर मैंने कहा ये second question है, मैं अभी इसकी analysis करके लाऊंगा. We did reduce large number of them. That is the kind of wastages which are happening. Right? And this, to my mind, fuel consumption, this whole thing can be computerized very easily and then done with.